This is our presentation on ice skating, also known as figure skating, by Zarren and Brett Robinson. For a bit of background history on ice skating, according to history, the Dutch were the earliest pioneers of ice skating. They used to use canals to maintain communication by skating, or back then it would be more like gliding from village to village. As this became more popular, clubs and rinks began to form, and it became more of a recreational event. Along the way, however, two Americans contributed to the major developments in ice skating and making it what it is today. One of which is Edward Bushnell, who in 1850 added a steel blade in order to allow for certain movers and turns. So instead of just being able to glide on a flat footsole, it made it into a blade where you could actually skate. And then Jackson Haynes came along and he added elements of ballet and dance, which gave it its grace and more of its sport-like nature. Now looking at the ice skating or figure skating itself, the sport involves skating on a blade over ice, and it usually involves things like jump spins and specific type of footwork, usually to music. It's one of the oldest Olympic sports that's been included in the Winter Games, beginning in 1924. It later became that ice dancing, a particular event of the ice skating genre, was included in 1976. There are multiple different types of competitions. There are men's and women's individual competitions, which involve individual skaters, either a man or a woman, performing a series of jumps, spins, step sequences, spirals, and other elements in their program. For pairs competition, a man and woman pair are dance together or skate together, and it usually contains throws, jumps, lifts, pair spins, and death spirals. Now, there's also ice dancing, which is very similar to pairs. However, it focuses more on footwork and keeping in time with the music, so it's more like dancing. And lifts can't go above the shoulder, and throws and jumps are not allowed in this event, which makes it different from the pairs. The first biomechanical concept we wanted to talk about was the basics, so Newton's third law. This states that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. This means that every force we apply is put back onto us. This happens to us all the time in our daily motions. This can go anything into walking. As we push on the ground will push back on us, effectively propelling us forward and allowing us to walk. Without this, we would never be able to essentially do any type of movement. This can be applied to figure skating specifically, for as the skater pushes against the ice, it will push back on them, effectively allowing the skater to move in either a vertical, horizontal, or angular directions, also known as them gliding or spinning or even jumping. Skaters use this all the time, so as they push harder, it'll help them to either get higher off the ground or spin faster, because the harder they push, the harder the ground pushes back, so that can cause that equal and opposite reaction.
Our second biomechanical principle that heavily influences ice skating is torque. Torque is a force applied to an object at an angle that causes the object to rotate around a set radius. The torque is equal to the force applied times the radius it is rotating around. Just as Newton's third law is needed for movement on the ice, torque is essential for spins and jumps. When a figure skater jumps or spins, they must apply force to the ice that will cause torque. The greater the force applied on the ice at takeoff, the greater the torque. Torque heavily influences the skater's ability to spin in the air and on the ground. Skaters manipulate torque by pushing harder off of the ice. Our final biomechanical principle that is essential to the sport is angular momentum. Being defined, angular momentum is the quantity of rotation of a moving body. It is equal to the moment of inertia multiplied by the angular velocity. Angular momentum, like linear momentum, is conserved in a system where there are no external torques acting upon it. This is absolutely crucial for ice skating. As a component, moment of inertia is defined as a body's ability to resist torque. In a closed system to external torques, moment of inertia and angular velocity have an inverse relationship. A skater starts a jump or spin with their arms extended, creating a large moment of inertia and needing great torque to overcome it and start rotating. Once the torque is applied and the spin begins, the skater brings their arms and legs closer to the center of the radius of rotation. By doing this, the skater lowers their moment of inertia, but because of conservation of momentum, in order to compensate for the lower moment of inertia, angular velocity has to increase, otherwise momentum would be lost. This creates faster spins. On exit of the spin, the skater extends arms and legs to create moment of inertia, allowing them to stick the landing and resist torque. Without angular momentum, landing complex spins would be impossible. In this video, you can see all of these principles firsthand. The skater enters the jump at an angle, creating torque as he pushes off the ice. Because of Newton's third law, as he pushes against the ice at an angle, it pushes him right back at that same angle. Notice how his arms and legs extend before he jumps, creating a wider moment of inertia. When he jumps, he brings his arms and legs towards the center, lowering his moment of inertia and greatly increasing his angular velocity, allowing him to spin. This is because angular momentum is conserved. Once again as they land, their body extends to increase moment of inertia and resist torque so that they may land safely. Incredible addition to the Olympic legacy, with many highs and lows for many talented athletes who gathered in Korea from around the world to compete in the sport they love most. Here are our medalists. For the men's single event, gold went to Hanyu Yuzura from Japan. In the ladies' single event, gold went to Zagatova Alina from Russia. In the pair skating event, gold went to both Savchenko Aljona and Masso Bruno from Germany. And in the ice dance category, gold went to Moore Scott from Canada and Virtue Tessa from Canada. And of course, just as with its predecessors, in this Olympics, history was made in many different ways for the sport and for the many awe-filled onlookers who saw just what the human body can accomplish. Mirai Nagasu was the first U.S. woman to land a triple axel, earning her a bronze medal in her Olympic debut. Javier Fernandez won bronze, the first ever Olympic figure skating medal for Spain in history. Nathan Chen of the United States landed 5 out of 6 quadruple spins in a single heat, a feat that had never been done before. Alina Zagatova won gold for ladies single free skate for Russia at age 15, the second youngest person to have ever won gold in this event.